but it tastes good. So
Late night coffee man, huh?
6 o'clock, but the thing is, I'm also ADD or ADHD, like legitimate. I have like the motor control issue stuff. Like with writing, it looks like I'm angrily writing with crayon. So like this is, I actually take this stuff rather than the stimulants I'm supposed to. So.
Oh, okay, all right.
So this actually calms me down. It's
calms
weird.
you down.
Yeah,
I got you. Well, I'm gonna get rolling here because I know there's a lot of things that I want to talk about tonight. Room's not real full yet, so hopefully more people pop in. But
we just have a good conversation about baseball.
Yeah, for sure. I found it. I'll introduce you a little bit. We have Tommy Johnson here. He's got a really awesome. Is that your home gym there, bud?
Yeah.
Your facility. Yeah, that's awesome back there. I showed my daughter that. That's phenomenal.
Man, like it's. I'm not good at many things, so like being able to, have my passion at home with being able to do some like independent research, or whether it's just doing my own field work before I start changing stuff in people's programs, especially exercise selection. Being able to empathize what it feels like to me is, allows me to, I feel like, coach things a little bit better.
100%. I always do that. When I did my second master's in the program I didn't do the whole thing, but I went through the first 6 weeks of it before I implemented any of it. Just, and I have a lot of shoulder pathology that I never had fixed, and I have herniated discs in my neck. So like,
I was gonna say that to you. Like you have a pretty long. You play football?
I did not. Not if you're high. No.
Yeah, you have pretty elongated, cervical posture.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely I'm all anterior pelvic tilt and that too. So
yeah,
beforehand I did that and I was like, man, and I knew because I did a lot of the stuff anyway with players through the years, but I think it's really important to do that. And anytime we try something new at our facility, I usually, before we started doing softball pitching, I taught myself how to pitch softball.
Oh, that's great.
And Josh Johnson was an extreme help to me, and so is Shelby McCombs. And we have a couple. I know at least two of the guys that work for us now go up on their own and train all the time, just trying stuff out after they research it. So I think that's extremely important. Like you said, you have to have some empathy, and I'll even do stuff. I talked the other night. I'll throw left-handed. I talked to Chad Longworth about it. Like, I cannot throw left-handed, but I'll throw left-handed if I'm trying to get a kid to do something they can't do it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to cue myself the same way I'm trying to teach them and see how it feels to me, because something ain't working and I got to figure something out for them. So I think that's a huge part of coaching. So we have Tommy Johnson here from Prime Athletics in Illinois, correct?
No, Prime Performance in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Oh, Maryland. Whoa, I was way off.
It's all right.
What?
It's all right.
Why did I?
We're here to talk baseball.
That's right.
That's all that matters.
I just found out last week talking to Rachel Folden that you were at Marshall the same time she was playing baseball.
Yeah, she was one of my practice buddies.
That is awesome. Rachel.
Yeah, I should have listened to her. She was talking about this stuff. Like, there's a reason why she was a 4-time All-American. One, she is incredible IQ, but two, like, she understood hitting. I feel like her understanding of hitting actually exceeded her athleticism. That way, she was very athletic, don't get me wrong, but like, when you watch her play, you're like, she's not the most athletic person on the field, but when you saw her hit, she was blessed with thunder. So like, it was really fun. And we used to throw in the courtyard too. I mean, here is the honest to God truth about Rachel. All she's ever done is work. And like, I couldn't always find that from the baseball team. So I would actually seek out some softball players because they were ballers, man. They were better than the Marshall baseball team. So like, why not? Like,
I'll tell
winning culture, right?
For sure. And I'll tell you what, we have one of the girls that does some softball pitching at our facility, her mom, and she trained at our place. She's on this call right now. And I will say that our softball girls outwork our baseball players.
Easily.
It's
and they cooperate better too. Like when I say cooperation, they work better as a team. They push each other. It's always like,
and like
I got for minutes a measuring contest.
I got my buddy Nick Showman's sweatshirt on right now, and he says the same thing. He works with softball players. He goes, dude, they're way better. Although he said he has had some baseball groups this last year that have been phenomenal, that have blown his mind. But yeah.
Well, I think as the human gets a little bit more intelligent by, like our environment's getting more intense in learning an educational field. And what we're finding is I don't necessarily think these kids are introverts, but they're not necessarily expressing themselves outwardly as much. So you see this type of behavior, and what you usually see is that these people, they're a little bit more planned. So I've seen it too, but a lot of times you don't see, at least the kids that we have, compete with words too much, and at least the ones that you do, there aren't as many of them.
Speaking of that, have you read the book Generation Z by Tim Elmore?
I have not heard of it, but I haven't gotten that one.
Yeah, that one. I'm reading that right now. That's another one that Josh Johnson told me to read, and it's very good, very good. But so let's get into it here. Can you tell us a little about your path, like what got you here and what you do?
Okay, so from a very young age, baseball's pretty much the only thing I ever really wanted to do, other than like draw Ninja Turtles on desks and stuff like that. So like from a very young age, like I knew baseball was something very special to me. I didn't really understand that it would be my life's work, but I've gone through a lot of ups and downs. I've gone, like I was told when I was at a very young age I wasn't going to be very good at baseball. I need to pick up a different sport. Wasn't very smart in school, which I could agree with that, because I don't necessarily feel that the school system was necessarily fit for a student like me. It's not a terrible system, but when you have to push 60 kids into a class and move it through, like your options for creating some customization for learning styles is it's hampered. But moving forward, I wasn't very good at first. I just kept playing. My brother was also a Division I baseball player, so he was 4 years apart. So what this allowed me to do is learn how to compete at an early age, or I couldn't hang out with him. I'm not the most social creature by nature. I communicate with you guys on the internet more than I do with a lot of my real people in person, because they simply don't want to communicate the same way. They don't want to talk baseball. So I guess it's been kind of an experience of learning. But I grew up in Gaithersburg, Maryland, played baseball my entire life, got a 4-year scholarship to Marshall University, did well there, was up for like the Johnny Bench Award, preseason Conference USA, first team. So like I did well, and then I got drafted in the 27th round by the Mariners in 2008. Had a pretty good career there, just I was the subject of being a 27th rounder, and I was in the middle of an organizational change. So basically what happened is they, ain't nobody they're paying or is a massive prospect they got rid of. So I believe that year they cleared 9 people for my position in spring training that was there the year before, which is a massive,
wow.
It's liquidation.
Yeah.
So once I got done with that, and I think this is the bigger part to my story, I don't ever, if you follow my stuff on Twitter, I don't ever really talk about my professional career or even my playing career, just because like I think it's irrelevant. Like it's what I did. It doesn't make me a good coach. But I feel those scenarios allow me to understand the beast a little bit and have conversations with players that make them feel comfortable. And that's what it's about. But as soon as I got done with baseball, I got released after I was named a prospect and by Baseball America and Topps Baseball. I got released the following spring training. It was pretty interesting. But I went to independent ball, and I had to I did a lot of soul searching, and a lot of the soul searching was, you know, I was trying to discover who I was because I knew the end was near. Once you get into independent baseball, once you go from affiliate to independent, it takes a real savage to climb back out. And I just didn't have that anymore because it's, you know, I did well, but whatever. So once I got done, I started trying to understand why didn't I do as well, because I had this talent. I threw the ball really hard. I hit the ball really hard, but I didn't know how to hit home runs. It was something that I wasn't taught to do, because when I got into high school, I was 180 pounds. When I graduated high school, I was 220, and I was playing professional baseball at 230. It's like, you don't, like, how, like, I got away with a lot. I was a high exit velocity guy. Like, I think with a beaster off a tee, I was like 120, 118. Yeah. I hit. So, like, if you've ever been out to East Carolina, look at dead center field. I hit one over the trees into the street there. So, like, but that would happen every once in a while. I should be missing more home runs. So then I got into teaching. I tried to become a suit. I tried to get a desk job. That didn't work. So after going through that process, I started teaching sessions at my brother's garage. I'm skipping. Huh? Yeah. My brother's. He runs his own. He's a mechanic. He runs his own shop. It was a one lane, and then he had 3 parking bays in there with lifts, and we would drop the net down. And then, so, like, I was dodging balls, getting hit off the side wall. It was, you know, middle of winter, no heat, you know, just have to do what we had to do. But I think that taught me a lot. And then once that finished, I got hired by a guy at a training facility because he wanted to branch out in sport performance. That ended after like a year and a half. But that was the biggest learning lesson I think I've ever had. And that was like a big rant getting to here. But I started to realize I wasn't very smart. And what I mean by smart, I mean I was uneducated. It wasn't that I didn't have the ability to retain. I had only one thing on my mind for the first 23 years of my life, and that was baseball. But it wasn't the how. It was do. And instead, I never learned how to play the game. Like, I didn't know how to base run. I was a terrible base runner because what do we do with catchers? Run for the catcher, please, to speed up the game. You know, then you get labeled as slow because you can't run bases because you have no intuition. So there are a bunch of things that I learned. And the one thing I learned is, why couldn't my body hold up better? A lot of it was late nights. A lot of it was, you know, feeding my body trash. And more importantly, I think it was anytime I worked out, I had one goal in mind. That was to crush myself. And it wasn't like to just get a nice pump in and get out so I get the hormones going. It was more like, I got to prove it to myself that I can do it. And it's like, it was more of the ego stuff. So once I got to this training facility, I got a chance to go up to Boston and learn from Mike Boyle. So Mike Boyle is, I don't know him. Like, we know of each other. We follow each other. You know, but that guy has indirectly done more for my career than anyone else, just simply because his ability to speak my language, which was, I'm an athlete, he turned strength conditioning into baseball for me. And then we started talking, and I started asking questions. And this is when I knew that I was heading in the right direction, because we had this powerlifting guy that came up with us. He was a USAW. Only it mattered was the barbell. So we get there, and I start asking questions. And this guy next to me starts fuming. I start asking questions. And so I start relating the med ball stuff to throwing, and the guy next to me is just seething for some reason. And then find out afterwards, he thought everything the guy was saying was bullshit. And I'm like, how, there's evidence this guy's good. People stay healthy when they train with him. And they're strong. This guy trains Olympic athletes like it's nothing. So the entire women's U.S. Olympic hockey team, we got to watch them train in person. They're just absolute animals, and I say that with respect. So once I noticed that, I was like, there's so much missing to my program for me. Like, I did P90X. That's how I trained, because, like, oh, I lifted weights, I worked hard. That's all I needed to do. So once I got there, it was basically just, all right. I actually thought about getting out of baseball, going completely strength and conditioning because, it seemed like a safer realm. And it was, because there's like, how many different populations can you work with?
Right.
Like, all right, I can go work with an old lady in the morning. I can work with the mommy in the afternoon. And then I could do kids and athletes all the way through the evening. And then I could make my buck. But then I started like seeing how this stuff was absent in baseball. And I was like, there may not be as much money in this, but this is what I want to do. So looking at it, I started looking. I think the issue, and I think I've been talking about how I got here. So I'm just gonna end myself there. That's kind of how I got here, and then I got the learning bug. So I may have started. I still don't want to start myself talking into your other questions.
No, that's good. I really think it's important that people hear the story about where you got where you are. I think that's really important because it gives people perspective on your point of view. It gives people, it gives you, I can't think of the term right now I'm looking for, but I don't know. It's easier to invest in somebody, I think, when you know their background. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I'm really open. Like, I even told you, I don't care what we talk about because I know you're going to ask good questions. And for me, like, everything's here. I can just ramble it off. I don't need for me, I think it's just, I think the story is like, you have to suck a lot and you have to be willing to suck a lot. And then as soon as you're not willing to suck a lot, it's over. Like, it's just, I think it's that simple. Like
100%. Even when you're great, I think you need to be able to you have to fail. Like,
we talk about Kobe Bryant. His success wasn't good enough.
Right.
Unless he made he was going to take every shot until X amount of shots win that night because that's what he wanted. Like,
right.
Dude, I love that because it's like the game doesn't have to end at the last out. You can go hop in the batting cage and get 10 more at bats if you want. Right. And I think it sucking either drives someone away from something or drives it closer to them.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's great. I love that quote. I'm going to get into the questions that I sent you, but there's something that you said when you talked about school and education that really stuck out to me. And that was that school didn't fit you. You didn't fit into school. And I'm a teacher and I see that all the time. And as coaches, and I had a principal I worked for when I'm at the elementary school now, and I used to be at the high school. When I was at the high school, we'd have teachers meetings and he would always say, coaches do this all the time. We differentiate for kids naturally. Like, we need to do better jobs of that as teachers. And especially now, the people that both you and I follow are always talking about, and they use the term silos or buckets all the time. We're going to assess a kid and we're going to figure out what the lowest hanging fruit is. And then we're going to put them in a bucket. So we have 20 kids on our team or in our program, and we have kids that need better bat speed. We have kids that need to run faster. We have kids that need better throwing velocity, and we can put them in a bucket to make their training program. And I really think schools fail at that. We try to do it with IEPs, we try to do it with gifted programs, but it's harder because, and it relates kind of, I think, to professional baseball and college baseball, is schools have mandates and hoops they have to jump through. And when you work for an organization or you work for a college, you have those certain hoops you have to jump through and rules. When you're a guy like you and I, we're private. We don't have to jump through those hoops. Like, we can do what is best for the kid when they come to us. And I think that is extremely liberating in our field, and I mean, I don't know. I've always had the dream, probably like you, I wanted to play pro baseball. And I still tell my wife to this day, someday I will be in professional baseball. Even if I'm a 75-year-old dude that's an usher at the ballpark, I'm going to be there. Like, that's where I want to be. That's my dream and I'm going to do it. But you give up. You have to give up a lot when you do that because you like to teach hitting, you like to do strength and conditioning, but if you're going to go into professional baseball or you're going to go into collegiate baseball, you're going to be you're going to be siloed into one of those. You're not going to be the strength coach and the hitting coach. You're not going to, and I had an interview I did really, really well with someone, and it was for pitching. And I would have loved to have taken the job, and the money was right, but I wouldn't have been able to work with hitters. And I didn't know if I could do that, so I don't know if that's great that you talked about. I wanted to go into strength and conditioning, and then you're like, no, my passion's baseball. I'm going to marry those two because we need people like you in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's where the game is, like, and I've talked to numerous strength coaches, and here's what we have to look at. It's more of like this 3-circle diagram. So like, say we have physical therapy, we have athletic training or strength conditioning, PT, ATC, and then we have baseball. They all have an intersection. And what I'm saying, and I think other people that are more progressive in their thoughts they're starting to realize is, this is the best hitter on my team. Instead of having him take 30 more swings, I'm going to have him do this little stretch in the ground that's going to activate some muscles, that's going to allow him to take more effective 30 swings instead of 60 swings. So now we're start talking about, especially in professional baseball, it's like overuse. Like, we need to develop hitters. Chances are these guys have already put 10,000 hours into playing baseball. Like, if we're going outliers, right? So yeah. My thought is, it's like, why not have them do it right? Why not develop the pattern, especially when you get a 16-year-old Latin American, instead of getting him to the league when he's 20 and having him fizzle out, have him spend another year in slow cooking this development. And that's going to build it up. Yeah. So it's, the way I'm looking at it is and we're seeing a lot more progressive people out there that are looking deeper. And what we're going to see from that is what's happened with this data thing. Because I can connect all three. Like, I can go, and that's why I make spreadsheets, because now I can go, hey, look, this is pointing me in the area to go. It may look like low-hanging fruit, but what I know is that pelvis is coupled with an ankle. So, like, if you work on the ankle first and get it going, and, like, you can do it all at the same time. You just have to prioritize. And I think by understanding, like, bat speed, it's like, I don't see why you can't train bat speed every day. Like, if we look at this Isserand's principles, and this is where, I think the hitting world is missing out on strength conditioning knowledge. And this guy made this chart, Vladimir Isserand, is a Russian periodization expert. Basically what he says is, like, if you don't train power regularly, it starts to decline on you. So it's like, why do I have this block of bat speed work? Like, why not just train it into everyone? So that way they can, we're lowest effective doses. So if we're taking lowest effective doses, it's like taking an aspirin every day. Like, it's going to make you healthier, except for your stomach. If you don't take to it. Now, your stomach could take to it, but that's the thing you have to look at, is like, okay, we have to listen to the signs. So if this guy starts to have breakdown, maybe that's where I think coaches have to realize is, like, when you create structures and outlines, they can be fluid. Like, the world's fluid. Nothing's rigid. Like, that tree's in there. Like, I'm looking at my backyard. There's a tree. I can cut it down. It doesn't have to be there. I can make changes. I can do whatever I want. But I think what we have to look at is having structure and having bones just allows us to be more organized in our time. And that's what we're battling. And I had this conversation with a strength coach because he's doing his part to learn baseball. And that the coach that he works with is doing his part too. So they have a beautiful process, and they become, in the last couple of years, way more successful. They were historically fantastic school too. But what we're looking at is, it's not that we need hitting coaches to do a strength coach's job. We need a hitting coach to understand the strength coach's job and and then we build programs that complement each other. Mm-hmm. Versus, I'm going to go work on him staying in a hinge. It's like, well, you're training the hips and he has an ankle issue. Like, maybe you should try less of a hinge. Like maybe you have to figure out if this is a guy that's more of a vertical torso hitter. Like some of those guys have to exist because like if their ankles don't allow them to stay into the ground, what are you going to do? Like they're going to have to force themselves up and down through pitches. It's going to be, if they don't have ankles, like it's going to be very hard. And a lot of these guys don't, but they're so athletic, they get away from it or get away with it. So I think what we got to look at is just simply be able to understand like, okay, that physical therapist, this guy's treating back pain. It's dull. So maybe if this guy just went in the field, he did his warm up, he comes back in, he sits on the bench. He sits on the bench for like 5 minutes. Well, me as a coach, I know sitting isn't the best thing for people. We do it. We've done it forever. We've done it. I mean, when people say sitting's bad for you, I'm like, well, we've always sat. I mean, we do more today than we have ever, except for we don't build. Like we just don't create things. So I'm looking at this whole idea where if I can just simply understand where each player is trying to go, then I can position myself better in that diagram. That way I can accomplish more. Because they may already be doing the job for me, but then again, they may not. And I don't care. If that guy's not doing what I think is right, I'm going to sneak some of my shit, my magic in there. Sorry for the language. I'm going to sneak some of my magic in there because if I know it's going to get what I want, well, that's part of a mechanical scheme that I need to get. And if the strength coach doesn't like it or the ATC doesn't like it, let's have a meeting about it and talk about perspectives. So at least me stepping on people's toes is going to if that can lead to a productive conversation, then it's worth it. Mm-hmm. But I think too many people try to avoid that conflict so they keep their job. I mean, for me, doing my job is better than keeping my job. That's just how I prefer it. Like we don't get in this baseball business because it's safe. So like it's not safe. Like if you suck, you mess people's swings up, and you're not good at marketing, you won't have a career. Mm-hmm. But if you're good at what you do and you get results and you're not afraid, that's why I love guys like Rick Strickland. Like I think that guy just goes after it. He goes after it the way that I think a lot of people should. And he goes hard with the technology because that's what he believes in. So but again, then we start talking to that analytics team, and this is something I've talked with a really bright guy in the Cardinals organization, Daniel Nicolaisen, really smart dude.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
He's a good dude too, man. Like we've had numerous conversations, and the thing I think is going to make him really successful is he's trying to look from other people's perspectives, because he's a data dude. Like that's what he'll tell you. Like I'm a data dude. I got where I am through data. So it's like being able to have people that can if we have me, you, and a data guy. We'll say that you're the hitting guy, I'm the strength guy, and we have a data guy. Well, say you get sick one day, and I need hey, we need an arm. I can come in through a BP. If you leave a plan, I can talk to hitters about what they need to do. Because let's be honest, with the way things are looking in baseball, they're going to be trimming some fat, and it's going to be harder to get jobs, and it's going to be so what they're going to be doing is trying to find people that are more qualified.
Yeah, I've had that question for a couple of years now because I see all these people getting hired in pro ball, and you have somebody that does biomechanics, and then you have somebody that does, a hitting coordinator, and then you have hitting coaches, and then you have, athletic training, and there's just so many people. I just don't understand across a 7, 8, 9 layer organization how all these people can have the communication that's truly needed to do what's best for the players.
And there's a really easy answer to that, and is people have to be willing to work within a system. Like the issue is we're all trying to prove ourselves, but call it socialist or whatever the hell you want. But if we all work together within a system to try to make the culture of our team better, we're talking about simple little meetings that take 15 minutes. Jose has he's got some pelvic tilt issues. Mark over there, he has some weird supination, pronation stuff going on, so it may affect his angle. What do you got in ATC? Yeah, well, he got hit by a pitch last week. Oh, well, that's going to affect my screen. That
Right.
may not have been communicated, right? So,
Yeah.
I think talking about the results, and here's the thing, this is why, and this is something that I've developed at my facility in case I have employees that decide they either want to go do something else or they found an opportunity that fits their life better. So if someone leaves, well, I already have all the stuff that I want done. It's already done. It's videos, manuals, everything. Now, I even have all the drills laid out that are going to be linked to each type of hitter, each type of inhibitor, each type of, we'll say therapeutic issue that they need resolved. It's all linked. And if you have a spreadsheet, it kind of tells you which way to go. You just do that program. And for me, it's okay, well, the one thing I found is people don't feel as creative, and it's well, I like winning. I like winning. Someone's gonna pay me something. I'm gonna use the stuff that I know that works best at first, and then if I have a hard time resolving, then I start breaking out the bands and all that extra stuff, because you first have to appeal to someone, and sometimes you have to say, we're going to take the bat out of your hand, you're not going to like it, I know that, I'd rather you hit, but I'd rather you hit correctly, so we need to rebuild this posture, and then put the bat in your hand. Mm-hmm. So but there's so many layers, you just have to have a macro and subsystems and all that stuff that allow the fluidity to kind of curve, and that's where baseball's so behind in that matter. At least I think so. I haven't heard all the stuff that's out there. There's just really smart people doing awesome things. But why do strength conditionings why do they have systems that work? We're human. Yeah, we have individual personalities and stuff like that, but we're not that different. Usually that stuff is based off our experiences, and those experiences are what are unusual and unique about us. Not necessarily the hardware and the software. I think what has been put into it over time is what's unique. And again, injury history, how many people that's something we document as soon as people come in, but I don't know if every hitting facility does that, because a person hurt their knee. Well, on K motion, that's a pelvic deceleration issue. Oh, well, a drill's not going to solve that. Sorry. The guy's a banged up knee. Give him all the path work you want. He's still going to pull off because he can't slow the pelvis down. It's just going to keep turning through space. So, I think when people start understanding that, I always go the therapeutic route first, because why not? Am I going to make them worse doing that? And if you have everything in an entire program, so their therapeutic work is simply our warm up, right? I've had people go how do you do it? It's have them do it, and then they start moving. So I like the PVC pipe stuff. We do it. I've been doing that for years, and it's one of the best teachers. But what if things are in the right position? Now I'm just moving out of position, and yeah, it looks good with the PVC pipe, but that doesn't. And I think this is the biggest word I'm going to use all night. It's transfer. Does it transfer? We're talking about from a physiological standpoint, from a motor control standpoint, from a mental standpoint, to understand why we're doing it. I think there's all these different things that you can look at. And I think this could be a very easily shared thing if we're willing to speak up for the player a little bit more.
Yeah, that was great. You talked about, you kind of explained the one question I was going to ask you, which was what integration means to you. I love the word integrate, because I think that it provides a cloud over all the things that we need to do for players. And you mentioned the word layers. How do you, obviously, and if any of you that are listening to this or watch it later on YouTube, if you follow Tommy, you see some of his awesome posts. They are awesome. He talks about how breathing helps, how important the ankle is and everything. He integrates the entire body into everything, and he integrates several modalities of training into how he addresses things. How do you come up with where each of these players needs to be addressed? What do you do to figure that out initially?
So I have an entry point to all my programs, and it starts with the assessments. Injury history first. So I always start with the breathing, because like we're talking about lowest hanging fruit. Just measure the lowest hanging, like if from a system standpoint, what you feel is the lowest hanging fruit that you see most often. Measure that first. Then go down the row. Like check them off, because if that, like I always measure breathing first, because if I improve the breathing, then this other stuff may improve. So it's like, why spend all that time when I can just get that? But it doesn't mean I don't want to train it. So like, I think to take your question deeper is like, okay, so I know I need a hip mobility exercise. In what position is your system going to take best to that? You can use the FMS for that, because basically the FMS is a measure of neurodevelopmental mile marks in isolation. So like you look at the leg raise, what is that? Well, can the lumbar stabilize enough for leg movement? If it can't, neurodevelopmentally start them on their back until they develop that like it's baby going to man or woman, whatever. Like I have to be politically correct. So you get what I'm saying? It's like I have answers there. Like if my system doesn't take information well on my back, I should probably start there. And people are like, well, I need to stand because my sport. It's like, screw your sport. Like,
Yeah, move right.
Yeah, well, it's not even that. Stabilize the movement.
Yeah.
Like okay, we're talking ground forces, and people are arguing about the spine. Like the spine does everything. These things are peripheral. They're offshoots. They don't like. They're all just extensions. Like these are cool. They're great. Not everyone has them. But like what we have to look at is like this is like this. If this doesn't tighten, then stuff moves around that's not supposed to move around during appendicular motion. That's another thing. Huh? Yeah. And that's when people got no ass, their ass blends into their hamstrings, and we're talking like that's when like I think people take core the wrong way. I think you have to look at anything that connects to the pelvis and anything that connects to the ribs. Not necessarily connects onto them, but that helps harness it. That's your core. So adductors, they hook onto my pelvis. They pull something into my pelvis called the femur. I think the adductor is part of the core muscle. Like it's just, it may be big and broad, but if you look at the tissue sheets and fascia, you know people would probably agree. But yeah, I mean, I could go all day on that topic.
Yeah, I've always said that you know, even when I had a rudimentary understanding of the core, is people train it the wrong way, and people don't understand it, and people don't understand the offshoots of it, and why it's important, you know. And if you can't stabilize the central portion of something, everything else is going to it's just going to be a wet noodle, you know. There's not going to be any control, and if you don't have the ability to do that, you know, if you don't have gross motor control of your core, the fine motor control of your elbow and fingers and hands aren't going to mean anything.
Now, here's something that, you know, I think people are starting to understand about like feet, like that they're great, your ankles, but we're also looking at something as like, we talk about putting the head of the femur in the acetabulum flush and the glenoid on the fossa flush, or the humerus on the glenoid flush. But we don't talk about, like, I don't think we necessarily appreciate the heel as a joint, like a heel into the ground, because basically we have two surfaces that are meeting, articulating against each other. Like, it may be an open, close, like it may be a variable joint, but I think if you look at it that way, the tighter you can get that thing to the ground, the more you can pull from the midsection. And people are getting it, and
yeah,
I think they're really getting it. I don't fully get it. You know, like I'm not against anything. Like you see this battle against like rotational and then like the scissor move. Like, dude, I think the more the merrier. Like bring all those movements here, because in martial arts they don't teach me just how to throw a cross. He's going to throw a jab, an uppercut. You know, I can switch up if I want. I think.
Well, I mean, you can just look at Jose Altuve. He scissors sometimes, and sometimes he doesn't. And I mean, he's a pretty good little hitter.
Yeah, dude. But I think what the issue is what we're seeing is that we're becoming so clung onto our own knowledge that we have to defend it to
specialized. So I was in 108. What is his name? Eugene. He's talking all about deceleration, stopping on that front side, holding that back foot.
Perfect.
It just, you get specialized in that business and you get believe in it. And it kind of blew my mind with like the back foot holding and the Mike Trout twist. But it's fascinating, really, with the ground force. But you can hear more of that getting into baseball. I hear it more and more.
And I think it's a really good thing, especially that we're starting to look at the back foot. The one thing that scares me though is we take this, like, say someone has a trail leg MCL issue.
Okay.
And you start having them slam that back knee, you know, really trying to scissor and force that move. What happens to that knee? Start getting shear force. So, like, and this is something I talked about with some hitting coaches. They're like, I'm all for it, dude. If I used to do it, I have pictures of me doing it. But I think my whole thing is we need to have as many different swings in our tool bag as possible.
Variability.
It's being adjustable, really. Yeah,
but here's something that I spoke about I was with some hitting analysts, and we were talking. It's like, look, anytime we get him to do this type of move, and they're trying to have him roll into landing, which it works for some people. And I go, well, what's his, one, where his ankle's like? Can he actually get the heel strike at that move? If he can't, he's going to lock out that knee early, and he's going to have knee issues. Well, he had ankle issues, but the guy was wearing a knee brace. So it's like we're talking about, put all aside. Like, that's why I think if you get the joints to do what they're supposed to do, you give them the options, more pathways open up.
Yeah.
You can take, and that's what, like, you look at guys like Altuve, well, they genetically have more pathways. They're
loose movers.
Dude, yeah, but not even that. I mean, people could argue with us and they could go, hey, he doesn't have good genetics. Genetics are, dude, he hits the ball 450 feet. What are you talking about? Just because it's in a peanut-sized container doesn't mean it's not genetically superior. It's like, dude, have you seen Lord of the Rings? There's this little dwarf dude swinging a big-ass hammer. Like, he's a hero. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think looking at someone's genetics from a exterior perspective is very negligent, because, like, we see some people from the jungle, like, they do some crazy stuff, and, like, I couldn't in my wildest dreams imagine doing it. And I think that's what we do as humans, and we've done this with human anatomy. We put labels on things so we can find them. And I think what happens is we start putting labels on movements, when movements is really just an interpretation of your environment to accomplish a task, right? That's variability. Well, train variability as much as you can. And that's why, like, I love that there's these arguments, but I'm going to use them both. Like, they're both good. There's both, like, we looked at it. You look at outside pitches, scissor move is probably going to accommodate a lot better. Mm-hmm. A lot better. Middle away, like, because that's what I used to do. I used to hit home runs.
Especially if it's a high ball.
Dude, yeah.
Well, it's all about getting your direction that way. And when you scissor, you point your midsection towards that direction more so. That's what I think. But
yeah. But it could be misinterpreted, is what I'm saying. But the same thing goes true with the other one. Like, I want to rotate my pelvis. So, like, if my pelvis can turn to the path of the ball, well, then where's my torso going to go?
To the ball.
Right?
Yeah.
It has to. And then if I can hold, like, here's the thing is, though, but what if I need to get to an inside pitch? I have to pull.
You're gonna fly open. Yeah.
I have to pull. Well, I mean, in some circumstances, you need to fly open as to hit an inside pitch. Like, if you can keep tilt. So, but this is I think this is the great conversation that really comes of is, well, how can we predict which person's going to take to this better? And like, that's why having more tools in your toolbox, like say you have a guy that has posterior impingements and doesn't really open up the hips well or open up the femur well. Well, that may be a guy that's scissor. A guy that doesn't flex at the lead leg, stepping forward is hip flexion. I just put a post out about that. When you step forward, what has to fire in order for you to pick up your foot and move it forward? Your psoas and your hip flexor.
Yeah.
That's easier. It's easier than moving in the frontal plane, which you may not have access to. Or when you hit the ground, going into flexion or going to that compressed spring idea.
Okay.
That's hip flexion also. So the difference is one is closed chain, the other one's open chain. So if you can get, so like if this is my knee, so let me just use my knee.
Just use your knee.
I have legs. I have legs. So say I'm a guy that holds this well.
Okay.
That is going to allow me to stay in the hip flexion. And now I don't have to
it off.
now I don't have to pull back. But what if I need that move? So like my whole thing is designers, like, honestly, experiment with the different fields. Like, and like I can't honestly say there's not one way to swing the bat, and we're learning that. And like, well, how come in the kinematic sequence, like this is how the body works, like from like it's been measured over and over, and like Justin Stone, he's the type of guy that's going to try to break something down and prove it wrong at first, and then he's going to find out more about it. That's just the way it seems from watching him progress. But like, that's why I love about listening to him talk. He's not trying to sell you any one way to do things. He's just trying to sell us a way to measure it and become more informed about the hitter. That way we can make better decisions. So like, I guess what I'm saying, I guess it's because I'm a shitty business guy. I'm not trying to sell anything. Like, I'm not trying to say any of these guys are, but they are selling stuff. And I'm not saying that's the goal. Yeah, they have a product. I'm not smart enough for that. So I think what it comes down to is what can we steal from everyone and put in our system? Because like, that's why I said Mike Boyle was the biggest thing for me. Well, guess what? Most of the people I trained growing up in this process was, training weak, very well-off kids. Well, there was many times where I told mom and dad, they're like, well, we only have 2 times a week to get here. I go, well, have them lift. Like, we talk about lift, no hitting? It's like, yeah, no hitting. What do you want me to do? Like, yeah, you want me to lie to you? Like, steal your money? Sorry. Like I said, I'm not a good business guy. So I think what we have to do is, and I think it's really, really hard to be a coach right now because we're trying to get organized through all this information, but we keep being given more information, more tools and stuff like that. And that's why, like, after a while, I just like, well, screw it. I'm gonna learn the one thing that we know more about, and that's the human body. So if I can learn that, I can start bridging my gap my way while letting these really smart guys like Eugene and Ochart and Justin do their thing, because because they're already doing the work. They're ahead of me on that. So the way I look at it is, what can I take from them and put it into the way that I view things, and it works well, man. Like you
can't go wrong by knowing the human body. I mean,
yeah,
my buddy that I referenced that I'm wearing his shirt, Nick Shulman, like, he wasn't a baseball player or a softball player, and he has found a niche training softball players like phenomenally. And the reason is he has no bias. He knows how the body works, and he's a power lifter, and he trained with Louis Simmons for, but he knows how the body works. And he's like, yeah, what you're getting told is probably not right. So we need to do this. Like, you don't move well. We need to address the movement first. And he's extremely successful because he doesn't have that bias that he was told by his little league coach, his high school coach, his college coach, There's no bias there. And I think
that's the thing. Like, I could argue with Westside, because Westside's beautiful. But when people do Westside, they go there to lift. They're not necessarily doing any other skill-related stuff. And, like, that may be biased on my side, but last time I checked, baseball players and softball players feel different every day. And
so that brings me to a question I had. With all of the skill work and all of the other work that we need to do for baseball, how, as coaches, how do we integrate that? How do we blend that all together? Because like you talked about, and you do such a great job on social media of talking about all the little things that go into it. And you're a blended guy like me. Like you do strength and skill. How do coaches and how do private people in the private sector, how do we integrate all those things together properly?
well, I think understanding your fit.
We have to, there's only so much bandwidth and economy a player has and time that we have with them.
Sure. I think you have to look at their plan. Like, we give them the option to hit and train on the same day, where a lot of people argue against that. I'll go, hey, look, if they have like if you're looking at Charlie Francis model, or you look at Joel Jamison's approach to it, which if you guys don't know him, he is a master exercise physiologist. Joel Jamison, like anytime you get a really successful guy that trains MMA guys, who's assigned, like that's a hard job. Like you're talking about
volume.
Like, yeah, well, not only that, I mean, if the athlete at all does not take to the program, he's going to get knocked out. He won't have tomorrow. He has to wait another 6 months.
Right.
So that's like
high stakes.
Yeah. So I think if you really understand your physiology, then you can say, okay, well, what's the first thing? Okay, plasticity happens early in the program. It happens early. So I want to communicate with my body how I want it to behave. And then I want to move into some really fast movement. Because if I've already outlined, okay, I've gone through my prep work, I've already outlined the movements my body needs to make that day without the bat in my hand, I'm not trying to make contact with anything. I'm simply just summoning the motor units and different pathways I need to accomplish the task. If I can do that in a low threshold manner, I mean, let's look at it. They've done it for years in martial arts. I mean, like, slow it down. Like, I'm not saying, and so there's also this physiological idea about transfer. Well, if you do something really slow, you're not going to move slow enough to affect the high-speed energy system. They're too far apart. But if you do something at this half-assed medium speed, like versus, you know, really trying to map it, then you start looking at the interference. Because, like, again, I look at it as strength conditioning. We're moving at weight, we're moving it fast, so it's power work. So once I get my body cleaned up and moving the way I want, again, if I move like shit, it's going to be probably lower thresholds of speed work. I'm probably going to do less sets because I know load, or the amount that I do plus intensity, is what usually causes injury. Dude, kids play basketball with tight ankles all the time. They don't feel it unless they do too much. So, like, until you get that body balanced out, you still want them to express speed because that's a neural thing. It's not muscular at all. It's neural. So if we look at it in that manner, well, then we can do that right after. So you get the body to move right. I use super speed sluggers because, you know, like, I don't want to use overload, underload bats unless I'm trying to have that, you know, constraint work. If later on I want them to hit higher velocity work with overload, underload bats, well, then that can be more of a response thing, a time to contact thing. But if I train bat speed every day, like low doses, well, you add those low doses up and they also learn how to do bat speed work. They'll do some more on their own also. So then we layer it. Because I think the complicated question is like what you were asking is, we have so much time, what do we do with it? Well, you could do it like a strength program where you do lowest effective doses. Now you simply have to explain to people this is the way we write programs. So if he does it one time a week, he'll see some benefit as long as he hits other times. If he or she does it 2 times a week, we're definitely going to see benefits. And if they hit on top of that also, it's going to go well. But we also need to monitor that they're not overdoing it. So if you have that conversation from the get-go, and they can kind of understand what you're trying to accomplish, because it's very, very simple. Again, it's strength conditioning. Like, it's FMS. They laid it out. You got to make sure there's no pain. You got to move right. You got to make sure you got to train the capacities that you want after you move right. And then there's not much more to it, right? And then you checked out. So I mean, like, again, having more tools in your toolbox is just like, you don't have to use them all. Like, I don't use RPR for everyone because not everyone tolerates that. I don't use PRI with everyone because some people think I'm full of shit when I have them lay down and breathe. Because they're like, I don't want to breathe. It's like, I'm here to, like, all right, I have to get in a different way. So maybe having them rub their sternum, gets them in that, that autonomic balance. So like, if you understand the body, then you can, it's like putting the pill in the yogurt. Like, you can insert your voodoo and your money, but they don't have to know. Like, that's why they're coming to you, because they trust you. Like, give them the right stuff, and if they complain about the program, you just have to be able to defend yourself. It's a dissertation every time you write a program. It's a dissertation. Can you defend it? If you can honestly just say why you put stuff in there, then what more do you need to know? Like, I think, then that's the argument you have, like Eric Cressy. If you can explain why you put something there, it's probably a good choice. But if you're just doing it because you're married to it and because you think it's going to be attractive to the client, you may hurt them.
Now you're a salesman at that point.
Yeah, like I said, I'm terrible. I'm not a good business guy.
No, I get it. I am as well. I'm awful at business. I'm horrible. I'm like, this is what we do because it works, and we're going to modify it to what your kid needs because we have, like you said, you got a big tool. But I mean, hopefully, through experience and training and learning, you build your toolbox and you have a plan, but you're able to, with experience and knowledge, you're able to branch off of that plan and do what the kid needs.
Here's a very interesting thing that I've seen in the last 6 years of running my business and looking at a lot of people's movements, like on the FMS, are very similar, but they may happen for different reasons. And we can't always say why it happens. It may be caused because you measure them on a day where they have a bellyache, right? Like, so what I think personally, what we have to do as coaches is, these are all just baselines. Everyone's like, well, we can't do it all the time. It's like, well, yeah, of course, because you talk about, time or economy. If you don't have time, then you have to pay attention. Like, if someone comes in,
we do assessments all the time in our warm-ups. Yeah. Like, we'll assess people, and then we'll be like, we got 6 weeks with this kid. I can't assess him after 4. Like, twice a week. I need every single minute with this kid. But we can build a warm-up where I can assess that kid's moves daily.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If you want to be a successful coach, like, you can't sell these one-time packages. You got to sell the amount of time, the minimum amount of time that you feel you need to make an impact. I always say 9 weeks. 6 weeks, if you do 6 weeks, well, they may not see the returns until week 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So, like, then they're unsatisfied, and they go to someone else, and they instantly get stronger.
It's because of your groundwork. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, we've seen that, and then they get hurt, and then they come back to you and they go, well, I got stronger with him. It's like, well, you went to him right after you went to me. Like, I've seen that, and I've had the conversation with people, like, well, how come I got stronger and then I got hurt? It's like, because you started doing stuff that didn't agree with your system. And that's where, like, I'm working on some stuff where I'm trying to have a better understanding of every system. I'm trying to have different viewpoints of each system. So, because, like, each system feeds off of each other. And if I have a reflexive system that goes, hey, we have tissue congestion in your left quad because you jump off your left leg all the time, or you lead leg block all the time, or, because you're righty. Well, then you're going to have fluid get trapped somewhere, and that could dehydrate your knee. If that dehydrates your knee, well, what happens to the recovery process? It doesn't. Nothing happens. It just dries out, and we get fibrotic, we get stiff, and then we get pain. So, like, that's where we talk about like understanding these different systems. Like if we can pinpoint, and if we have different, so like say we do the FMS, we do on base, we do all these other ones, and they're all pointing at pelvic work. What do we do? Pelvic work. I'm like, well, I only need one assessment to tell me that, but isn't it nice to have 2 or 3 to tell you? Like, so that way you're not just like confirmation bias. Like, oh yeah, it's just confirming what I already know. It's like, well, what if we get into an RPR cheat and we say it's their ankle that's fucking up their right hip, or their left ankle's fucking up their right shoulder? Sorry for the language. This is being recorded. So this is how I speak. So like, it's tough because I get into it. But yeah, like then we can start appreciating where on the X things start breaking down. Like maybe that hip, that right shoulder issue, that left hip issue is really due to a left ankle. So like, well, if we have different systems we can fix, well then we can, I'm not saying fix, but we can use these different systems to mitigate the autogenic response, like how we respond to pain or discomfort. Well, we may be able to dissipate it and move forward with our training. So, I think this is where having, like, as a hitting coach, if you can do that, like you're saving your staff. Like, say if you're a big league, you're in a pro camp and you have 60 people. Well, you're keeping one of those 60 people out of the training room for the other people that actually need help. Like so now your teammates can do a better job at their job, which gives you better players to work with. So that's what I'm saying. Like having this like very low level ability, like simply have someone hop on a foam roll. Like it may be able to get them 3 to 4 more productive swings. Like I don't know. So I think what we have to look at is what the athlete needs and the amount of time you have. Because I personally believe that sometimes you have to do someone else's. And from being a teacher, like sometimes you're gonna have to go help out another staff member that's on the completely other side of the school. Yeah, because they can't get a sub in time sometimes. Like this is how it works.
Right.
So like, dude, make it work. Like the number one goal is to win, and that means if each player that day can become a little bit more educated, can understand what their body does and who they are a little bit more, then that's a win, because they can use that moving forward in competition or whatever they do.
That's awesome. So with the kids you're seeing, let's just talk about it in general, not break it down into levels. What are the biggest swing flaws that you see?
Oh man, biggest swing flaws I see are generally early extension of space. Also a lot of loss of posture. Like you start seeing people, like you get people that are trying to hold onto the ground on their backside for too long. Well, you look at like everything to me is just a responsive gait. Like I need to shift weight. Like if we're looking at hitting is very secondary to walking. It's very secondary. Like if we're to go, I'm a God guy, so it's not always easy to talk about. But if we were to progress through time and I were to get tired and stop walking, I get eaten. Right? It's how it works. So I can't walk for long periods of time. I get eaten. I can go long periods of time without swinging an axe to chop down firewood. Right? So we're talking about primary and tertiary functions of the body, so general versus specific. Well, I always have to, in order to get specific, I have to appreciate the general. The very most general movement we have is walking. Well, if I don't honor that, well, I'm going to create some distortion somewhere in the body. So that's why, like, holding, for me, I don't really believe in holding onto the ground if I have the ground with the front. So basically it's going to be like walking where I go, or I'm going to go, say we start off in right stance, foots in the air, toe touch, heel strike, boom. Well, that's hitting, right? If I can get Mike Trout where he's holding the floor with both feet and then he transfers, well, that's gait. So gait is rotation. I mean, it's just smaller degrees, but we have to look at that. It's the same thing happening at the floor. One's happening more in the frontal plane. So this is where, if you guys get a chance, follow a guy named Lee Taft if you don't already.
Lee Taft.
Yeah.
Leetaft.
Follow that guy, and this was like, I think 5 years ago, I started hearing him talk about the lateral gait cycle. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Now, the lateral gait cycle is the same thing as the gait cycle, except for going sideways. So the difference in a shuffle and swinging is one is cyclic, the other is acyclic. So with an acyclic opportunity, you need to slam on the brakes. With a cyclic opportunity, you keep the wheels rolling. So the difference is, in a shuffle, we want to go heel toe. Well, try to pull the ground with the heel. With hitting, since we're trying to slam on the brakes, we go toe, heel. So basically, we're trying to halt propulsion. That way, we can create that real robust, firm leg, creating deceleration. So, Joe, did you raise your hand?
No, my dog started barking.
Oh, cool. Dogs are great. But yeah, so that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I've looked at it for a long time. That's like, everyone starts talking about heels. If you go to my really early tweets, like we're talking, like that's all I would talk about. And the reason, and no one wants to talk about it. And then now people want to talk about it. It's funny because it's like, if we can just appreciate the natural function of humans, if you breathe well, the environment slows down. Crazy. If you walk well, your relationship with the ground becomes better. Again, if your relationship with the ground becomes better, your body stabilizes, which means your brain goes off of alert and can go into a task-focused mode. But if you don't have the ground, you're free falling. And Kyle, if you free fall, appendages do weird shit.
You get the wet noodle, man.
Yeah. So again, we're talking, and this is where people are like, oh, well, we have to work on the ankles. It's like, well, not necessarily. Because if the spine can't compress, you can't pull yourself into the ground because you don't have hamstrings. And this is where, like, getting pelvic tilt and rib alignment is huge. And this is why guys like Aaron Judge get hurt, because they do create so much out of the box lean and twist. So we're twisting under extreme amounts of side bend. But if you were to try to keep the shoulders inside the pelvis, well, the spine still has enough stack relative to the pelvis, which means it's not too far outside itself, which means you're not going to have to go into the lower segments of the spine called the lumbar. If your shoulder, yeah, so you're keeping the stack closer to the body. And this is where people are trying to prevent side bend. And it's like, don't. There's side bend and walking. Like, don't prevent it. Please allow it. It's just, it shouldn't be over manufactured, because it is. You're not going to hold it. So, like, say we'll talk about.
You talking the arch of the back kind of thing? Like when you swing, coming back up?
Okay. Yeah, there's got to be, it's got to be a robust transfer forward without coming off the path too much. And just because it's a slingshot effect. And once that thing stops, everything flies forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I see that all the time. The three things that you talked about, especially loss of space and posture. I mean, kids come up this way and then they rotate at the lumbar spine. And that's a recipe for injury, and it's an extremely inefficient move.
So here's the thing is, I've seen that by doing on base. I've seen that probably from about 90% of my kids.
Yeah.
Once you clean up the spine,
Yep.
that goes away.
Yeah.
But here's the really cool thing about doing clean up no space drill, like using no space drills, is you can do sway and drift drills while you do it by shaping the environment. So you can hammer 3 of these things in one drill just by placing creating the right environment. So that's my thing. It's like, if you can see how, like, say if I get no space, I have gate swing. Well, yeah, no shit. Because if my hips move towards the plate, I block myself, and then I have to cast my hands outward. And then I have to pull off and do that real tight elbow pull through. And people are like, oh, he's chicken legging. And it's like, well, that's usually a defense mechanism. And some people get really lucky and good with it.
It's a compensation, and I think
there's nothing wrong with that.
that's the whole cycle we're in, is the people that want to learn are learning. The people that don't want to learn keep trying to cue the compensation, and it doesn't work. Like the cue doesn't work because, if you're trying to get a kid balanced, or if you're trying to get a kid over, to have good posture and early extension at the hip, and they fly out, and then you're like, oh, well, you got to stay over the plate. Well, one, if you can't control your body that way, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
If there's a visual problem, the kid's going to want to get the heck out of the way.
Yeah,
Another thing we don't talk about is where's the visual motor? Where's the visual input? And how does that relate to all of the systems that you talk about?
So I have that in the system. So basically what you can do is you can look at it, because you're talking about a reflex. I have people I refer out to. I would refer out to Right Eye Pro. It's not Right Eye. It is Right Eye. It's not Right Eye Pro. It's Right Eye. So Right Eye, they're actually developed in Bethesda. Shoot them a follow. What they've done is they create a way to track your eyes and stuff like that. So I've had multiple concussions, and I did this thing at Slugfest. And by the way, if whoever watches this or listens to it, try to make a chance to go to Slugfest. Tyler Jessica did an absolutely awesome job putting that on with Jeff Albert and Oliver. And it was just a really good thing to go to. But I think what we have to look at and continually look at and learn is just like, hey, look, compensations aren't always a bad thing. Like, yeah, I compensated because I had to make a momentary adjustment to get there. It went 350 feet. The fence is 330. Not my best swing, but I take it. I take the RBI any day, especially the bomb pull side. And good hitters have variability. I mean, they're going to do that. They're going to adjust the body, and that goes back to what Joe talked about earlier with, the scissor or not to scissor. Like, if you have the ability to do both, if both of those things are in your tool bag and can be employed immediately, probably going to have a better chance of being successful. Yeah. And that's the thing is, I think the short-term goal, we have to find out what transfers immediately. And I think the long-term goal is, can we develop the supporting structures to either build on this or keep it from getting worse? Because I worked with a 16-year-old who had bilateral hip surgery. What 16-year-old has bilateral hip surgery? And and he was using a certain device that just had him rotate all the time. And it wasn't the device that was hurting him, it was the user. The device is perfect. It does what it's designed to do. It teaches people to pull themselves in and turn fast. Well, little did he know
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great product, but it needs to be used for people that, he would literally do it 200 times a day.
What product is that?
I don't want to talk about it just because I'm not putting it in a positive light, and it's not a bad tool.
I got you.
It's not a bad tool at all. It's a fine tool. It does what it's supposed to do, but when you have user error, it can lead to complications because the kid couldn't appreciate his body because he wasn't willing to.
Well, it's out of context, right? So it's it's out of context, right? So
exactly.
It's exact same thing with using blast motion or all those sensors. That tool is great and it shows you information and data gives you back, but it doesn't give you a context of what ball flight is or what's actually happening, what trajectory the ball is coming in. It's just stuff like that's out of context. And when people use tools like that and not know the information behind it and why I need to do it and understand what they're trying to do.
I also think the issue with technology, Joe, I think the issue with technology, sometimes it takes a lot of time, sometimes it fails.
Yeah.
So I feel like a complete piece of crap when my tech fails, because not only did my tech fail and it looks bad, but I just wasted 15 minutes of that person's session.
Yeah.
So that's where I think using technology as a way to build programs versus making technology the program. Too many people are trying to sell technology, and it's
it's a tool to make you a better carpenter. That's all it is.
That's all it is. But people are trying to sell it, and this is I had someone ask me recently. It's well, how do you use K-Motion? It's the way they instruct us to use it. Like I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like those guys, like they invented this thing. I'm not going to tell them anything.
And it's
like,
one thing of your program. It's one thing that gives you information so you can make a better decision for the athlete.
Yeah. It's my interpretation, and and that's why having like, I don't think we're ever gonna. There's gonna be a point where we're good enough, and like I'm dropping names, but this is a guy that's not really in baseball, but his name is Charlie Weingroff. He made me realize this. So the Wizards invited me down. The Washington Wizards invited me down to listen to this guy because one of my friends is the head strength coach there. One of the nicest guys in the world. PRI mind. He's just one of the most genuinely nice people I've ever met, and super smart. Like it's terrifying being around him because I'm like, my brain's so small compared to yours. But so listening to this guy Charlie talk, he's the first, one of the first people I heard him talk about silos, and he agrees. Like you have to have silos, you have to have them, but it doesn't mean you can't understand what's in the other one. And this kind of brings us full circle, because I think the whole idea of I talk about kicking down silos. I think it's finding the relativity in the stuff we're doing versus the difference. Because, I think, there's just a bunch of smart people out there that are doing that in other sports. Baseball's, we're going through our technological era right now. We're going through our, they were doing this. They're probably doing this in golf. Like, remember Tiger Woods golf when they started putting parabolas on stuff, like the tracers? Oh my God. And then like they would give you all the readings, the ball spin reading, and like 10 years later, here's baseball.
Well, I think the system has to be like a Venn diagram where everything meets in the middle.
Yeah. There's 3 circles, man.
Yeah, you've got to have all those, like you said, you get that
5.
triangle, and that's the first thing that popped into my head, and that's how it has to be. Like everybody's got to work together. And I know it's a smaller scale because you're not talking about programming and you're not integrating all this other stuff. But if you think about a football team, like the school I teach at, we won the state football championship this year. And we have a good football program. But your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator, and your special teams coach all work together to develop a team identity. It's a plan, and they all work together, and that's exactly how, in the baseball world, we need to figure that out. Like, how can the hitting coach know enough about the strength and conditioning side of it that they can relate to the strength coach? And how can the strength coach know enough about hitting to relate to the hitting coach? And you have to do the same thing with pitching.
It's very easy. Very easy.
Very easy. You look
all you got to do. Keep going. Sorry.
I was just going to say, do you know who does it really, really well? And I know it's just the pitching side, but look at Ben Brewster.
Yeah.
Like that dude nails it with pitching mechanics and nutrition, and you do the same thing. And it's not that hard. And that's what's really, really interesting to me. And I used to get mad about it, but now it just intrigues me on the whole leadership aspect of it. Like, why don't people want to even try to buy in? What's their hang up? Like,
it's uncomfortable.
And I get that it's uncomfortable, but you have really, really, really good coaches that just refuse to understand certain things. And if they're that good of a coach, they have to have that in their personality. Do you know what I mean? Like, there has to be something that wants to learn for them to get to be that good of a coach. Where's that disconnect?
So I think the disconnect it's very simple. You allow the strength or physical therapist to have one little section in your program and let them put it in there. Hey, Phil, we got number 34 over there. We really need more vertical angle from a little more authentic side bend. Hey, would you mind putting one of your little exercises in for our hitting warm up? Sure, man. Plop. But then again, your programs, your PDFs, your menus all have to accommodate that idea. Mm-hmm. So like that way, we can go, hey, how can we get, how can we get David Ortiz to do more work, like the way we need him to? All he wants to do is hit. Like, just like a strength program, 1A, high T, 2A, or 1B, we could say side plank, something like that. Like 20-second side plank. Oh, it's my turn again? Boom.
Dude, I'm just picturing David Ortiz do a side plank makes me smile.
But or you just have a dude likes weights. Have him just like, hey, hold this kettlebell.
Yeah.
Stand on your knees, hold the kettlebell. One arm.
Do a farmer's walk. Go walk.
Not even that. Just stand on your knees. Be lazy as shit. Just hold this bell for 20 seconds. Do not let it move. Like that's how easy you can make it. Because I think what I have done in the past, and I'm guilty of, I romanticize things. I create this idea, this storyline in my head on how things should be and how they should go. And if they don't get that way, I become upset. And I think that's a normal human behavior.
It is. It is. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm the same way. It's normal.
Yeah. So it's no different for anyone else doing their job. So like if someone says I have to do something a little differently, I'm already good at what I do. It's like, ugh. But I think that's where you have to. This is the beautiful thing about pro ball is you can just wipe out everything. You can just go, boop, you're like all gone. Like we're starting over. That can happen. Well, then that's when you drop the bones in, and you hire people. You hire people that want to follow a system. It's just like what Cressy does. Like, yeah, you're gonna and in baseball you're gonna lose people. You lose people because I lost a really good pitching coach last year. I got another really good pitching coach. I didn't know if I was going to get another really good pitching coach, but I did. So, you don't know how things are going to work out, but if you have a system, an educational process, you can bring people in and say, hey, this is how we operate our system. You have to do it for 7 months, and then you can do whatever you want. But this is a system that we function under because this system allows your coach over there, your hitting coach over there, to work with you, the strength coach, and allows the ATC, physical therapist, corrective exercise, all to help you do your job.
Yeah.
If you don't like this program, I'm sorry, I can fire you and hire someone immediately because I have the educational database and system laid out. But again, the system, I'm not saying the system, and this is what people get a little bit out of shape of when they hear system, because they think it's like this, this like real strict thing. It's like, no, it can bend. Like, okay, so this guy needs more hitting work. He played really bad last night. So instead, and his body feels good. We have, and especially with some of these teams they have in colleges, they have all the kids doing HRVs. If you're doing your HRV and a guy gets a green, just trust it and go, hey, I can load this guy a little bit more today. So I can give him one more round of stuff. If he's low HRV, pick out what will be most productive for him. Like, if you do something that honors his system, he's going to perform better because he's not fatigued. And that's where I hate, and I do it because when I make my posts, I have 160 characters, and then I have to try to say what I'm saying, but it can be skewed. It can people can misinterpret it because they're like, I'm not talking about an ideal swing. Like they're like, let's get off of that. Like I put a post out the other day or last week. I haven't been posting as much. I've just been trying to pick up some different hobbies too. But I was talking about the anterior fibers of the glute med, and it's like, I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but if you want clean rotation, you have to have access to that muscle. And it's just like no one had any issues with it, but that's a way like people could misinterpret what I'm saying because like, well, what about an outside pitch where you can't actually pull all the way into the front hip? It's like, well, yeah, no crap, because it's an outside pitch. Like you're hitting the pitch right down the middle or in. If you can have access to full internal rotators, you're going to win. You'll create a path to get to the ball, and your early extension will happen later. So yeah, I think it's about having not so rigid systems, but systems. Mine works really well. I've gone through a lot of employees this past year for multiple reasons. One dude started his own business, and follow him. He's awesome. His name's Kevin Donati. He's up at Massachusetts. He runs Rip City Academy. Really, really awesome young man. And then I had another kid end up going coaching in college. So, and for the business to keep going and for the clients to recognize the pattern of the program gives them that consistent program that allows the quality of the program to maintain itself. And I think we talk about like Disney, like IBM, Apple, they what to expect when you pull that package. Like I'm just waiting for that suction to happen. That's, talking about when you open an Apple product. So, but that's predictable. Like after opening 5 or 6 of them, I know it's coming. I enjoy it. It's like popping the Nike Air Bubble at the end of the shoe use. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I appreciate it, dude.
Yeah.
Good stuff. A lot of good stuff. And this is good because I'm really hoping more people watch it, because it just shows that there's just so much information out there that you have to just be open and willing to learn it, because the more you learn, the more you get overwhelmed, but the more you're able to apply it to what the kids and the players actually need. And that's what
being overwhelmed is the best part. It means you're taking the fabric of your mind and just
there's
stretching it.
It's like that fine line between genius and insanity, and you get into that where you're just overwhelmed enough where you're like euphoric, and then you get to that point where you're like you can't take anymore, and then you come back around on the other side of it and you feel amazing.
Dude, yeah. But and here's the thing is, so what if no one watches this? And here's my thing is, Kyle and Joe, and was it Allison that was on?
Yeah, she bolted on us. I think
it's okay.
We meandered too much for her, I think, a little bit.
It's okay. We're here to talk baseball. Sometimes it takes time. So, but like we had the conversation. Like for me, like if you look at my post, I don't care who likes it. I'm gonna put it there anyways. I came on this conversation with you and whoever wanted to be a part of it. So, regardless of who benefits from it, I benefited from it. You benefited from it because we got to speak and we got to interact, which is more than we're getting a lot these days.
That's right.
But so like I look at this as, really positive, and if anyone watches it, I hope they feel, and this is the thing, when people don't understand stuff, they hide. Like, dude, run towards the pain, run towards the insult. Let people make fun of you. Like, that's called being vulnerable, and that's how you learn. Like,
they get better. It's how you grow, for sure.
You get better at asking girls out, and you do it more. Like, it's like, all right, we could go with all those examples, but yeah, man. Anytime you want to chat, Kyle, I'm always open, man.
I appreciate it, dude. And when this thing gets over with, I'm gonna come on down to Maryland if you don't mind.
It'd be fun to have you. Like I'm open to everything. That's what I told you. Like, dude, you could have done this without a script. I don't care. Joe was on the other night with us. Nothing there was written or organized. None of the questions I had, I want to have conversations. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to
authenticity. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything. I'm just trying. I'm just trying, man. I'm just trying, just like you guys. And I think, making it fun and making it, and everyone showing a little humility, I think is where we can get this whole thing to go a little bit faster. But thank you guys.
Good. Not a problem, man. You enjoy that family.
Oh yeah. And anyone who listens to this, if I debated with your techniques or whatever, it's just I question everything, but everything's useful. I want everyone to know that. So I respect if I've mentioned anyone's name or anyone's product, I respect everyone that's out there putting out their stuff because they're doing their part.
It's not the tool, it's the carpenter, and it's not the cue, it's the intent.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure I cover myself because like I'm not trying to get personal with anyone because I'll tell you what, and Joe heard it, man. Like I don't disagree with any of these guys. It's all about how it's being used and who's interpreting the information because I guarantee you the guys that are coming up with this information are super smart, and the way that they apply it is productive.
Yeah.
So that's why but I am so grateful for everyone that puts out stuff, because it's helpful for me. Like,
100%.
guys like Bleecker, Stone, Ochart, they're putting out stuff that's so useful for everyone, and like just what they're doing. And I don't know where they get the time. I don't have that time. But they're special people, and they do wonderful work.
100%.
All their stuff's great. But
Yep.
yeah, hey, again, thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for joining us, man. And
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, that was awesome.
All right,
Thanks,
later,
man.
guys.
Later.